everybody. Welcome. This is an ongoing series. If you are joining us for the first time, it is called The Narrative is Changing. I'm Aubrey Bergauer, if we haven't met yet. And this whole series I started in January of this year. Kind of hard to believe now that we're in August. And if you've been following me for any amount of time, you know I talk a lot about changing the narrative, but we have seen so much change for the better, indicators of change in arts and culture, that now I say the narrative is changing. And that's been the whole theme of this series. And so today's topic is all about storytelling. And so many of us know these days content is king. It is economy now. We know much any brand, again, in any industry that is thriving, that's growing, is good at storytelling and has really activated their customer base by being such effective storytellers. So that's what we are talking about today. And while we, meaning arts and culture, are not selling a physical product, we're often selling an emotion, right? An experience, a transformative experience. That's exactly what storytelling is and does. And so, like I said, we're going to unpack that. We're going to spend the next, 20 minutes or so today with an expert I am so excited to introduce you to on this subject matter. And she knows storytelling inside and out. We are going to cover topics specifically today that include storytelling tips, really hearing from a pro on what are the do's and don'ts, what bringing a script to the screen has in common with bringing performances to a stage. We're going to hear a little bit about the highs and lows of storytelling, meaning what is best about this work, what is most challenging about this work. And we are also going to talk a little bit about failure and what that looks like and means for us. So I am going to welcome our guest today, Marcia Gwendolyn Jones. I'm going to turn your video on and do a little bit more intro here. Hi, Marcia. Welcome.
Hello. Aubrey, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So everybody watching this, I just want to invite you, share this in your feeds. If you feel like what we were talking about today is helpful to other people in your network, would be helpful to the industry, and that other people could benefit from this topic too. So just to share a little bit more about Marcia, she and I met earlier this summer in LA through a mutual connection, and I felt like we just really hit it off, just instantly connected, just became kind of fast friends. And I really, once I started learning more about Marcia's professional background, I said, we got to work together somehow. So the quick bio is, you may have heard of films like Monsters, Inc. and companies like Pixar. Everybody watching, Marcia is the producing force behind movies like that. Monsters, Inc. 2001, Finding Nemo 2003. Most recently, she produced PAW Patrol, the movie. That's for Spin Master Entertainment. Anybody in Skydance Animation, anybody who has kids, I know you know PAW Patrol. So you're looking at a superstar here behind the scenes. And I just think what she's doing is so cool because it's an unannounced feature, and it just feels like IMDb or something. I don't know. I'm just like fangirling right now. So, no, of
I just
course.
want to do a plug. I'm a producer for an unannounced feature for Skydance Animation. I did PAW Patrol the movie with Spin Master, and Spin Master is a toy company as well as a content producer. Spin Master and Skydance have a deal together to do the toys for Skydance. I just love that synergy. It's like two of my worlds coming together. It's pretty awesome. Anyway, it's been announced, so I can say that. It's okay.
Good. I love it. We're just like the inside scoop here. Okay, Kate in the comments says 2 of my favorite pros in one conversation. Yay, Kate!
Oh, thank you, Kate.
Indeed, a superstar. So the fans are here, Marcia. Okay, so here we go. A couple more bio things. Just my take is that so much of what Marcia says, like, I feel like you can swap out, for anybody watching from an arts organization, you can swap out studio for arts organization, and it pretty much holds 100% true. This is one of the things that really drew me to her. And I just think that there's so much wisdom. She brings so many similarities between our two worlds, both in the challenges we face and in the rewarding parts of the job as well, like sharing our final product with an audience. So a couple more points and then I'll dive into questions here. As a feature animation producer, Marcia catalyzes creative vision from script to screen. I just love this, and we're going to talk more about what that means in a little bit, catalyzing creative vision. And finally, she is known, because this is so cool, I have to share it, she's known as the closer. And that means she delivers projects on time, on budget. These are words that feel very familiar to us in any kind of arts and culture discipline for sure. While balancing artistic goals and creative vision. I mean, seriously, like I said, swap out studio for insert artistic discipline and it totally holds. So she's known for creating high crew morale under intense deadlines, known for great collaborative communication so that teams feel valued, supported. I mean, I could just go on and on and on. And she's lived in New York. She was an expat living in Canada, Ireland, France. You've been everywhere, lady. And then recently returned to the US to join Skydance Animation, where she is working on that feature.
Yeah,
so
the unannounced feature.
Yeah. All right. So let's dive in. I want to start with some of those things that you've said that I do feel are directly interchangeable, as I've said multiple times now. So you have said to me, and I'm going to quote you, you said creating efficiency in order to attract incredible talent, or creating excellence for your audience is another phrase I've heard you say. Can you say more about these ideas? What does it look like when there are not efficiencies? What's the normal talent attracted? I mean, I'm asking you a lot of questions right now, but let me just hand it over to you to expound on all of that.
Well, thank you so much. And I'll be looking a little off screen because I prepared notes. I know our time, this is a half an hour, and I want to make sure that, I really laser my responses. So one of the things I wanted to say about creating efficiencies, I recently gave another talk, and one of the things I said was, and it was quoted back to me, which I loved, was, I love what I do, but I'm not what I do. And efficiencies, or effective ways to approach essential actions and tasks, they help create the focus on the art and on innovations and iterations, and that gives time back to the people for work-life balance. That's really essential for almost everybody I know that works in the business, particularly when they're balancing, being a spouse, being a parent, other things that they're, devoted to in their lives. And it doesn't take away anything from the passion for what we do. It's just that work-life balance, and efficiencies support that. What I think that looks like when there are not efficiencies is that time and effort is put into tasks that should be more automated or anticipated. This could be things like having a clunky tracking system, or not ordering equipment until a new hire is physically in the building rather than anticipating. And I just want to share one story, one real life example of that. I once worked on a film, and we ordered all the Cintiqs, which is a specific kind of equipment that we needed for the artist, well in advance. Unbeknownst to me, a decision was made by the larger studio to raid my stash for another show. So when the time came, I came up short on equipment, even though I really felt I had anticipated to make sure we were ready to go. So we ended up having several days of downtime for several team members because of that decision to raid my stash unbeknownst to me, and needing to order new equipment and then have it arrive and then set it up. That's just an example. And sometimes best laid plans. Attracting incredible talent. The way I wanted to I know you did throw a lot at me, but again, I wanted to prepare and really be ready to talk to that. And I think this will speak across arts organizations. Attracting incredible talent can be like a seasoned creator who's has a stellar track record and who you can count on because they're just so experienced and seasoned, or it can be like a recent graduate, somebody who's a novice even, who has the style and the ability and the talent that fits beautifully with what you want to achieve. So incredible talent, one size doesn't fit all, because it so much depends on what is the vision you have for what you want to achieve and who's the best match for that.
Yeah.
So I hope that answers those initial questions.
I love that. Well, I appreciate you saying that too, that it's not one size fits all. Talent takes many different forms. I think that's so, so important in breaking out of sort of standard definitions or maybe just, I don't know, things we fall back on sometimes. So, okay, I see a comment. The audio stopped for me. If anybody else, I'm not seeing anybody else say that though. So everything's good on this end, I can tell. But with that, I wanted to prompt you all, please do leave comments, cheer Marcia on. If you have questions, please leave those too. I'll totally come back to questions in just a moment.
Cheer Aubrey on as well, please.
Thank you. But I'll definitely come back to questions is the point. So continuing on, I said that we would come back to this. Your bio says that you catalyze creative vision from script to screen. And that just feels like such an impactful, actionable statement. So can you say more about what does that mean for you?
Yeah, thank you. And that's a fun question for me. It's about supporting the creative process with excellence and balancing the needs of the timeline and budget while creating space for the artists to do their best work. Mostly unencumbered, the artist being mostly unencumbered by the day-to-day bean counting or number crunching. And it can look like just asking the right question about a creative choice that helps move the needle on any given day. So it's kind of it's one of those talents that's a bit intangible, but that's the way it looks, I would say, and that's my approach.
Yeah, great. So I want to get into storytelling a little now. And you said to me that whatever resonates with you, me, this whoever the storyteller is, whatever resonates with the storyteller will resonate with other people. Can you talk a little bit more about that? And maybe specifically, how does somebody producing content for an arts organization, whether that's video shorts, promos about whatever the next concert, exhibit, etc. is, videos for the website, you know, whatever, even TikTok or Instagram videos. How does somebody producing this kind of content get in the mind space of whatever resonates with you as the storyteller resonates with the audience? Is this about empathy? Is it something else?
I think it largely is about empathy and common human themes. It's about humanity. I am going to quote the late, great Maya Angelou. We are more alike than not alike. We are more alike than not alike. And what that means to me is that there are themes that connect humanity. And most great storytelling taps into those themes. And they're universal. And my experience is, if a story deeply, passionately resonates with the storyteller, then it's likely going to resonate with the audience too.
Yeah. I'm wondering, this is a follow-up question that I did not send you in advance, but is this hard? I think so often, at least the marketing teams I've worked with and content producers I've worked with, when we know we're so close to the product, we're so close to the art, that it can be very challenging, I think, to have empathy with somebody who's newer to the art form, to produce a story or a piece of content that is meeting them where they are. Is the same true, do you think, in these feature films in your work as a producer? Or
well, yes, people don't make anything as an island unto themselves. So it is highly, highly collaborative. There's feedback loops with story trusts. And one of the things I really respect about Skydance Animation particularly is an inclusion trust. They're looking at issues, of diversity. And, as a woman of color, that's hugely important to me. So it's not like somebody goes away in a closet for 5 years and creates art. That there are feedback loops, including, practical ones like previews and, audience testing and stuff like that. But it always starts with an idea that has a passion behind it. I find, I'm going to talk my current organization, all the features, even the ones that I can't talk about, I'm happy to say are original stories. And there's not a lot of studios doing that right now. And that's about the artist that has a passion to tell something that's close to them. So even with all of the constructs of feedback, which are essential in such a collaborative environment, I'm sure, like, again, insert any arts organization here, that you're still, the basis for that, the genesis of that is the passion and the storyteller and supporting them.
Yeah, great. Yeah, it doesn't
I
happen.
hope that helps.
Oh, totally. No, I love it. It's helpful to hear that. Yeah, it doesn't, nobody goes in a closet for 5 years, like you said, and then emerges, so yeah. Okay, let's see. Pro tips. Are there any storytelling tips that you can offer for everybody watching this, or conversely, anything that you think people should not do?
Well, I talked about feedback loops and testing and all the things that are, part of the industry. But I honestly believe this to my core. Don't try to predict a hit. Instead, tell the story that speaks to you. Tell the story that speaks to you, that you're passionate about telling. That's probably the best advice that I can give. So nobody takes anything away from this. I hope they take that one.
Yeah, no, I love that, actually. Yeah, we can't predict what will resonate. We can't predict what will be a hit. We can't predict what piece of content will do well. Yeah, but what are the points that resonate or inspire us and are passionate to us? Yeah, I like that.
I remember a filmmaker that I deeply respect. He said, making an animated feature is like telling a joke and waiting 3 years to see if people are going to laugh.
Yes.
We don't have those crystal balls to look ahead to see how things are going to be received. So I think it's being true to ourselves and our storytelling tribe.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm just in my head sort of running the parallel to classical music. And in some ways it's similar. We know what our season is 2 years in advance sometimes, definitely some large amount of time in advance. And to some degree, we know, okay, the Beethoven will always do well, those kind of things. But then what about this other work that we're trying to either world premiere or a lesser known piece? And then I really go back to what you just said in your tips of do and don't do. What about that piece is interesting? What about that piece or that composer made us decide to program it in the first place? What are those?
Hit you here in the feels. What is that?
Yeah, that's the story to tell. Yeah. So, yeah, anyways, connecting the dots here. Okay, Troy says, love the Maya Angelou quote. Thank you, Marcia. Kate says, I love that. Audrey says, love trusting what resonates as is authentic to the storyteller. Great, love it. Keep it coming, everybody. Okay, switching gears a little bit here. You and I talked before about how technology has evolved to allow for storytelling. And then that also segued into the conversation that we had about failure. And I think this is an area of great importance for all of us, particularly for arts organizations. And that's for two reasons. One is because we don't always embrace the new tools and technology available to us. And there's so much out there now, and that even wasn't available just a couple of years ago. And then the second reason why this topic is so important is because we definitely at arts organizations don't always allow room for failure. And I'm wondering, what does that look like? This is a very two-part question, tech and failure, and somehow I've bundled into one topic, but can you talk about that?
I'd love to. I'm pretty passionate about it. It really harkens back to your initial conversation about creating efficiencies and effectiveness. And let's just think about it. Innovation pretty much requires failure. How do you grow and change? How do you create something new? You test. You learn from that test. You move on. You can say failure. I'm not afraid to say that word. You could say, I did these iterations of tests. Storytelling is that. You iterate. It's something, you have a screening. Some things are good about it. Some things clearly need fixing. That's how you improve. That's how you get to the story telling you what the best version of itself is, and getting together in that way. Technology is the same. Sometimes it's scary to say, okay, we're gonna upgrade to this new thing, or we're gonna try. It's now coming. It was in gaming, and it's now coming into animation more and more. It's a platform called Unreal Engine, and it's definitely different. It's definitely new, and it gives the opportunity for real-time iterations and rendering. This is just an example in my industry of something that's now being embraced and tested. One of the things I think that can be scary is saying, well, I've got a tight deadline. How do I allow for failure? How do I allow for innovation when I've got a budget and a deadline? The best thing to do is to build that in. If it's not possible to build it in, build it maybe in tandem. So, well, maybe it's not this picture, but maybe we can do it on picture 3, that sort of thing, and say, okay, let's have this riding in the background. There's a term that's used, stress testing. That's important. You want to have an opportunity to see something and say, oh, you know what, that's great, but the first version failed. Okay, can we go back to the manufacturer? Can we go back to the creator, and can they adapt their software or even hardware, if it might be, to help us do what we need to do? Those kinds of relationships are actually quite common. And sometimes it takes a little bravery to say, well, hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And just set that aside and say, you know what, there's something out there where we can do better. And this can help us. And it's all in the support of great storytelling. I remember back when I worked at Pixar, one of the reasons that I was so attracted to that studio is they had a motto: no amount of technology can turn a bad story into a good one. And I think that that's important. So it's not just, hey, this is a cool gadget. It's what will help us tell our stories better. And again, so that's that innovation, efficiencies, but it also has to do with trying and failing until something works better, right? That's what innovating is.
Oh my gosh, thank you. That iteration is innovation. I'm sort of paraphrasing what you said, but I say this all the time, and I'm just like, okay, I got to blast this video out to as many people as possible, because I'm just like, you're totally speaking my language right now. And Caleb knows it too. Hi, Caleb. Caleb says, I always think one of Aubrey's comments about how no one is going back to look at your old posts or content that has only 3 likes is a reminder that we can try iteration and try different ideas. And yes, Caleb, 100%, because, and Marcia reinforced those ideas he just said. So yes, because like as you're saying all of this, you're talking about iteration, not just in the sense, it's not just trial and error, but it's iteration and then progress, not perfection.
Improvement. Yeah, exactly. I love that. Focus on progress, not perfection is a huge, huge motto of mine.
I saw that from my instructor. I'm not going to lie. But like, oh my gosh, for everybody watching, like to hear Marcia talk about this, and she's talking about full-length feature animation, animated films, like, we're talking in an arts organization at like 60-second TikTok videos. Like the pressure is just not that high. So to iterate and try is okay. And then to loop back Caleb's point of like, yeah, if it gets 3 likes and it kind of bombs in that way, it's okay. It's gone in the feed. The algorithm doesn't promote it. Like our bar is so low in a good way. And that like testing ideas and content is so much easier for us because we're not putting out a 2.5 hour movie, So, okay, so let's see here. Everybody, a reminder, put in your questions if you've got questions. I've got 1 or 2 more, and then I'll circle back to anything in the chat in terms of questions. So I want to talk about a little bit more in that, I said at the top, you're known as the closer, which just sounds so cool, but you're also known as a solutions architect. And so I want to ask you about that. Like, what is the most rewarding thing about what you do, about being a solutions architect? And then conversely, what's the most challenging?
Well, the rewarding collaboration, working with great people to tell great stories. I have a lot of fun. I get to belly laugh every day. Now, being a producer, there's a huge financial responsibility. It's not for the faint of heart particularly, but nobody's brain is open on a table. Nobody's life at stake. I realize there are people that are, paying mortgages and putting food on the table, and I get that. So I take it very seriously. However, I do understand it's a cartoon, and I think perspective is very important. So I truly enjoy working with the team and collaborating. That's absolutely the most rewarding thing. And then again, as you said earlier in the talk, putting your product out into the world, your performance, your whatever it is, your film, whatever it might be, as a gift to the world, and with the best intentions of creating high value entertainment, and hopefully something that families and people will enjoy for years and years. So that's hugely rewarding. I would say the challenging thing is probably really being proactive and anticipating. I wanted to give a real life example of that. The solutions challenge meets solutions architect. What does that look like? When I did PAW Patrol, specifically, again, it takes a village. I worked really closely with my post-production supervisor because I was looking 6-8 months ahead about when we delivered. So I said, okay, I can see where we're tracking with our final shots, and I'd like to give us way more time, as much as I can. How far can we push? So we worked together and we figured out where we still delivered to Paramount on time, but also gave post-production more time. But this means you're talking to your sound designer, you're talking to your sound mixer and when your mix dates are, you're talking to your composer and when they're recording the score. So it's a lot of collaboration, but the earlier that you can look ahead at that and say, hey, can we shift it a bit, the more leeway you'll have. And then you'll just be giving yourself more time. And in this particular instance of challenge meets solutions architect, one of the things that I wanted to create was more time for everybody to go into what in my industry is called CBBs. And CBB means could be better. And what that means is you put a shot through because you need to put it through, but there's something about it you want to improve. Like I can live with it if I have to. So you really are saying, I'm approving this, but you're flagging it as something you'd love to, if time permits, love to go back into that. Well, yeah. We were able to hit all our priority CBBs or could be betters because we pushed the schedule. And then you also have to do fixes on quality checks. Like there's actual fixes you have to do when they go through the QC process or quality check process. So you just give yourself more grace, more of a grace period, more grace, if you will. And that to me is one of those challenging things, but again, with experience and with an eye to being proactive and looking forward, you can tackle head on. That's just a real life example.
Yeah, no, that's great. CBBs. Okay, I'm going to use that if that's okay. I like that a lot.
Absolutely. It's pretty common language in animation.
I've never heard it before. Okay, all right. Bringing it to the nonprofit arts sector here. All right. Okay, so let's see here. No questions in the chat, just lots of cheers.
I do want to, because I do want to ask you the same thing. I want to flip the script in the time that we have and say, what is the most rewarding and most challenging thing about what you do, Aubrey? I'd love you to take some time to speak to that if you'll indulge me.
Yeah, okay. Oh, and then meanwhile, now questions are coming in the chat. Okay, we won't do a hard stop at 30 minutes. We'll keep it going just a little longer. Okay, let's see. For me, most rewarding is moving people forward, for sure. Like that feels very similar in some ways to what you were saying, just moving people forward toward a common goal. Whether that's internally at an organization or externally moving audiences forward on a journey, that is so fulfilling for me. And changing a paradigm, that for me, for sure. And the challenging part is overcoming change. As somebody who is known for, I just said I get fulfillment out of changing a paradigm. Therefore, like the other side of that coin is that change can be scary or intimidating sometimes. And that I think is the top challenge I face in my work. It's on the meta level, it's a big challenge for the industry as a whole. How do we change in an industry that's very steeped in tradition, and what's the good of that? And then what's the part of that is no longer serving us? So yeah, I think that's my answer. So, okay, question from Kate. This is a little off topic, but both Aubrey and Marcia have a passion for bringing diverse voices to the table. Do you have any recommendations in this area for how we can cultivate this in our organizations? Oh, love this question. Do you want to go, Marcia, on that one?
It's a great one. I think it's this may sound so elemental, but it's a motto I kind of live by these days. And I think COVID kind of brought this home in a big way. Take nothing for granted. There's a lot of unconscious bias. I mean, there's clear blatant bias, but even our unconscious bias, and look at the metrics of, who are your voice talent? What are the body types of the characters that you have? What are the features and shades of color of the characters? If they're on a human scale, even if they're fantasy characters, are they falling into certain tropes? Just really look at what you're doing and why, and what might just be habitual or out of an unconscious bias. And I think on the floor, it's really important. When I say on the floor, what that means is the actual team that you have that is working on the film, and look and say, what are the themes of the story that I'm telling? Is there an opportunity for me to carve out a creative lead who can bring a different perspective to this? Another saying that I love is diversity adds dimension. And it's key to really keep yourself open to that and be willing to ask questions, even if they're a little uncomfortable. And sometimes those conversations are, because people are, again, it's the same. If you're shifting into a more diverse arena, there can be a discomfort because you're used to a different paradigm. And it's a shift in thinking. And sometimes you really have to dig a little deeper, myself included, to think differently, to make different choices. So take nothing for granted is probably the headline there in my answer.
Yeah, that's such great advice. And I think, we talk a lot, especially in classical music. I will not open the can of worms on the audition process, but there's a lot to be done there. But faster changes and choices we can make are, who are our guest artists? Who are we bringing in? And I like what you said about different, you were talking about different body shapes, different ethnicities, colors, like all of these are choices we make every season. Same thing is true with staff as we hire, and especially right now, this is such an opportunity that so many organizations have, as there's been so much staff turnover and great reshuffle, and board members is another area. And so I just, I thought that was really, again, just another parallel. You're talking about these choices we make, and it's whether it's drawn or IRL in real life, these are choices. So I really love that. Okay, now the questions are coming. Okay, diversity adds dimension. People love it. Okay. Okay, question for Marcia. How do you personally keep a team or group that's invested in a project inspired along the way when encountering uncertainty, whether that's budget, technical glitches, audience projections, etc., or other challenges? How do you keep the process of producing content from feeling like a punch list of to-dos?
Well, I think part of it is, and this is a great question because it's a great reminder to me as a producer and a leader, is remembering the common goal. We want to tell a great story, and remember that the focus, whether it's a reset, a rethink, a setback, whatever it might be, it's okay, let's keep our eye on where we want to end up and what we're holding hands to do here. That's a huge help in keeping people invested and passionate. The other thing is really listening to your people and having an opportunity to see where they are and where they want to go. That's important. I have to say that there's a talent development department at my current company that's very invested in talent retention and really tracking people's goals. And as a producer and a leader, that's very important to me.
So I'm going to ask, there's one more question in the chat. I'm going to ask that, and then I'll wrap us up if that's all right. Okay. Neha says, any suggestions for new upcoming producers? She says, I have personally noticed that nowadays being a producer is more about numbers and finance. Oh, this is a great compliment. You are one of the few producers who are not only keeping projects on track, but also have a voice when it comes to creative decisions. as so are you involved in storytelling. Do you think at the end of the day, it's only about delivering?
That's a huge part of it. That's why I said, producing isn't for the faint of heart, because you have a very large financial responsibility. So there's no question that's a huge part of it. I think part of it depends on your organization and the culture. So I will say that that might impact, where the focus is. So that's something. It's important for you to examine that and take. I also say take nothing personally. Look at what the culture is, what your sphere of influence is, and see if that's the right fit for you long term. That might be something to examine.
Yeah, great. Okay, one more question came in and I got to ask it because it's a little fiery.
All right.
Loving this discussion. They say there are so many relevant crossovers to classical music. How do you reconcile artistic vision? And this is the spicy part, fiery part. How do you reconcile artistic vision and egos with telling your story in a way that most resonates with audiences? So I got to ask just because it pokes a little bit. So, and then I really will call it.
Well, again, this points back. I'm going to keep it lasered. It points back to culture and what is tolerated in your leads and your artists. Egos are important, but so is collaboration and having a voice at the table. And have, even if the buck stops with somebody and they're the one who has to make the final decision, you still will need to create the space, I think, in a healthy organization for people to have input.
Yes, thank you for that. What are we tolerating? So important, so important. Thank you, thank you. Okay. Everybody, please run, don't walk, and follow Marcia. I mean, she's so wonderful.
Please run, don't walk, and follow Aubrey.
I wish I could just talk to you forever, but I feel we're so lucky to have your wisdom shared with us. And like they said in the chat, it is so applicable. So I'm glad you all agree. And everybody, if you liked what you heard or you learned something, please leave a comment, leave a like, share this with others to spread the word about this conversation. It's really, I think, helpful to our industry when we get these shares and people see that this is valuable content from a true superstar and expert. So, okay. With that, I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you all once again. And I just wish you all the very best as you all are actively changing your own narratives at your organizations. And just know I'm cheering you on. Have a good one, everybody.